But I think you guys will agree a lot of women slip and fast, right? So they have like this 7-year window where they're at their peak and they use it. They do use it. They flaunt it. They use it. They quite honestly, they abuse it. But men, we have a 25-year window. Hello guys and welcome back. This video is going to be a bit more to do with the male advantage, the one that we discussed before. It's kind of a part 2 of that, and it's a video that I produced before. A lot of you might recognize the graphics that will come up on screen. The video I put out before, it was quite a lazy video. The research took me a long time, but I didn't really put any effort into doing recording or talking about it. It was just text coming up on screen, so I thought I'd elaborate on it, explain it a bit more. And now the title that I used was Men Most Attractive at This Age, which will be part of this in 2 parts, I would say. But I'm going to discuss all of the peaks that men go through at different stages. Let me bring that up on screen. There we go. That's the old video. So getting straight into it because there's quite a few and I don't want this to be like a 30-minute video. So number 1 is learning, age 7. We'll fly through this because obviously I imagine if you're watching this, you're older than 7. This just means, this is just stresses the importance of, there's so many successful people like Bill Gates that were able to look at coding and computers when they were young, and it just helps. Whatever you do when you're young really, really helps. If your parents were wealthy enough to put you into a good school and they had access to certain facilities that other people don't, you usually find the kids that were doing something young are experts at it when they're older. It's the same in sports, to be honest. I think it comes down to kind of like fight IQ, knowing where to move on like a football pitch, when to pass, when not to. And I think that same thing happens there. But moving on, because I think that's kind of a pointless one. But it will add up to the average at the end. Brain power at 18. So yeah, learning at age 7, but brain power in terms of how well we can process things is age 18. So that probably makes sense and why, we're taking a lot of tests at that age. And also at 18 is testosterone, which again makes sense because of the amount we're trying to fuck when we're 18 and we don't really care too much about who it's going to be. Now that's quite a dangerous one. See, the thing is, if your brain power at 18 is peaked, and your testosterone's peaked at 18. At 18, you're going to think you're the best, right? You're going to think you could probably get any woman in the world. You could probably, and I'm going to base this around women because obviously the title of the video was Men Most Attractive at This Age. So I think that's what we should go after. But yeah, if those 2 things are peaking at 18, you're going to think you're the best. You're going to have high testosterone. And that's going to back you up. That's why we're all assholes at 18. And we think that's our peak. Probably because of our egos. But in reality, it comes a lot later in life, which we'll get to. So everything before the age, I'd say before the age of 25, maybe, is based on kind of sporting performance and youthfulness. So 24, we peak with coordination, which, I guess allows you to be smooth. But does it really help us in life? Not really. You don't ever say anybody say, look at the coordination that guy has, maybe coordinating his clothes, but not coordination in a sense of like being able to move correctly. I think you either had that or you don't. But in a sporting sense, coordination 24. All of the, like I said, all of the ones before 25, when men think they're at their best, they're all pointless. So here's where I think men really get into their stride. And if you remember from the male advantage, the study that I found said that women didn't even find men attractive until they were 24, which kind of makes sense, right? So if our strength peaks at 25 and then carries through, because that's the thing, it peaks at 25, but it carries through to about age 40, and you can even let it go a little bit longer if you keep lifting. But usually, for most men, it's about 25 to 35, and then it tails off with testosterone dropping. But if you can stay in the gym, you can stay lifting heavy, live a clean life, it will reach 40. So there's a 15-year window where you're strong as fuck. Now, the reason I mention that is because your testosterone is still very, very high. And I know it makes sense to get in the gym before 25, but I think if you've just hit 25, you're about to hit 25, or, maybe 26, 27, 28, don't forget the situation you're in right now. So your strength has just entered its peak and your testosterone's still probably the highest it'll ever be. I doubt it's dropped that much. What you've got is the perfect concoction to get in shape. So really make it happen there. And I believe that 25 is the first age where men really start to become men and they really start to become attractive. It's level 1, or let's say level 2, but it's when it begins. So 28 is when your cardio and endurance peaks, which just means, you're going to have a stronger heart. You're going to be able to train even harder. So between 25 and 28, you should be getting in some of the best shape, the best precursor shape of your life. You should be starting to lift heavy. Strength at 25 peaks, so why not start doing your compound lifts, your deadlifts, your squats. It's pretty much when I got into it. I only started doing it about 2 years ago properly. And really looking at training properly rather than just doing like some bodyweight stuff. And I managed to get close to 100 kilograms, or I did reach 100 kilograms, which was quite nice actually. I felt enormous. I think I'm about 90 now. But with your cardio and endurance being 28, that allows you to shred as well. So you're going to be able to get cut up. You're going to be doing some crazy kettlebell routines. This is the precursor for what comes next. So muscle and bone mass, age 30. Now this is when you should be looking thicker. That real manly body that we discussed before of, should you kind of train for aesthetics or strength, that sort of thing. Well, at this age, it's going to help you out on its own, because you're going to hit 30, you're going to look bigger naturally, you're going to look thicker, which is massively, massively attractive for women. And hopefully by that age, you've had basically 5 years from 25 to 30 to pack on that muscle, to get shredded, and have that kind of perfect body, that athletic build as a precursor for whacking on that man meat at age 30. And that is probably when you're in your physical prime. Now, we're moving on to other things now, because as we know, and I think this is a good thing, and this is what I'm going to make as a video next, is that women don't just value men based on, oh, he's good looking and he's muscular. We all know that success, money, assets, having your shit together is massive in the eyes of women. So after 30, which makes sense, these other traits start peaking for men. And this is kind of the male advantage part 2. So our memory peaks at 32, which is a weapon around women. And it's a weapon in business. It's a weapon around, let's say in the office, is in an entrepreneurial sense. It basically means that I know your brain power peaks at 18, but it wouldn't have dipped that much at 32. So you're going to be able to have the ability to, you've got a high processing power and you're able to remember a lot of shit. So in a business sense, this is when a lot of men really start getting into their stride. So now you're really getting into your stride financially and you're in some great shape. Not bad. So it's no wonder that age 35, when you've probably got rid of all the boyish traits, you've probably got rid of all the financial woes, you get to 35, it's no wonder that your attractiveness to women peaks at 35. And I've actually added up everything on this list, and if you divide it by how many there are, I think it's 36. So 35, 36 is roughly about right in terms of when a man's at his peak and when a man is most attractive to women, which is encouraging, right, guys? Women are probably most attractive about 22 years old. That's from the graphs and charts that I've seen. That's what it says. For men, it's a whole 13 years later than that, 13, 14 years later than that. That gives us so much time to put things in place. That's so encouraging. That excites me to be a man. I think we're so lucky to be men. So lucky. Because you could be born ugly, you could be born with a terrible body, you could be born into poverty. 35 years later, you're a rich, in shape, making the best of himself, well-dressed man who's intelligent and has a successful business. And now you can get any woman you want. See, women can't do that. I don't make the rules, but women can't do that. You're either hot or you're not. Now, you can have a personality, and that's massively attractive the older you get. But I think we'll all agree that if a girl was on minimum wage or jobless, but straight 10, we'd still probably date her at least, right? So entrepreneur success, 42. Now this is interesting because I saw that Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich, he said that most men don't achieve anything until they reach their 40s. And he said it's that they start using their sexual energy correctly. They're a little bit older and wiser. They're more focused, which, interestingly, peaks at 43. So I think around about this age, if you haven't got your shit together yet, your 40s are really going to bring things together, and you're still not old. You're really not old. You're about halfway through your life. And here's the thing, right, guys? This is why I made so much importance about getting in shape. So much importance, because if you're in shape and healthy and you stay fit, let's say from 25 to 40, you just have this 15-year window where you just rock the gym like crazy. You eat good, you take care of yourself. You don't go out and drink 20 beers a night on a Friday and Saturday. Then by 40, you might look 28, which means that, you're going to look fantastic. You're going to be in the best shape of your life still. Testosterone is still going to be high, but now your attractiveness to women is pretty much near its peak. Your entrepreneur success, your focus, and your potential highest earnings, which is 48, are all going to come together into this melting pot of greatness for men. And it's interesting that entrepreneur success is 42 and highest earnings are 48, roughly within the same window. So a 6-year window where men will really start hitting their stride financially, which, as we all know, is massively attractive to women. And that's so close to 35. You can imagine that most men aren't just going to hit, 42 or 48 and become billionaires overnight. It's going to be a gradual process, right? So you could be 35 years old and, instead of earning 3,000 per month, you're earning 10,000 a month, right? And your wage is going to go even higher by the time you hit 48, but you're on 10,000 a month. So now you're a successful, in-shape man who's done well for himself, who has good assets, who's got rid of the childish traits, who isn't just a ball of testosterone, young, dumb, and full of cum. And, that makes you massively attractive to women. So, yeah, it says attractiveness to women 35. Yeah, it could be 44 for you. Look at some Hollywood actors. They didn't really become attractive until they were in their 40s. So everything has a caveat based on the way that you live your life. But there's definitely something there. If you look at that board, if you look at that statistic from 25 strength, and you work your way down to around about highest earnings at 48, just pretend that was 50. You've just got this 25-year window as a man where you're in your peak, or you're building towards your peak, or you're in your peak, like however you want to look at it. It starts at 25. I guess it kind of ends at 50. It's hard to, unless you've got stem cells, etc., or TRT, it's hard to stay in that zone. But you've got a 25-year window where you're in your peak. And speaking of the male advantage, guys, most women might start peaking at like 16, right? I'm not saying I find 16-year-old women attractive, but I think everybody will say that that's when they start, filling out. And I know there's plenty of 16-year-olds out there that men have caught cases on where they look like 28-year-old women, and they're not, sadly. So something like 16 for women till about 25, that's usually what a lot of people think. So like a 9-year window. And like we said, 16 off limits, 17 off limits. A woman gets to 18. Still for a lot of men it's off limits, but I think they're pretty much available to the male market at that age. So, you might even be saying that a woman only gets to use her power from because she's not in a job and stuff like that. So she doesn't really get to use her power until 18. So it's like 18 to 25, really. Obviously, it goes on a little bit late for a lot of women, but I think you guys will agree a lot of women slip and fast, right? So they have this 7-year window where they're at their peak and they use it. They do use it. They flaunt it. They use it. They quite honestly, they abuse it. But men, we have a 25-year window. So they have a 7-year window. We have a 25-year window. It's nearly 4 times more. That's how lucky we are to be men. So moving on, empathy at 51. That'd be great for kids. Vocabulary at 71. Easy for me to say. Ironic. And mental health at 82, obviously, if you are in good health, that is, if things haven't fucked up, I think they mean happiness. You don't want for much, you've had a good life. But vocabulary there is probably, empathy definitely, it's going to help you with women, but vocabulary definitely. And that's not going to be, you're a dumbass that's 70, but suddenly at 71, your vocabulary goes through the roof and you know every word under the sun. That's going to be at 18, you're a bit of a dickhead, you use terrible words, your grammar's all over the place. And then as you get older, it's going to get better. So you'd assume at 35, it's about halfway towards as good as it'll ever be. Or it could be even higher up than that. It's just the next process is gradual and even slower, or the next growth, should I say. So when you draw a ring around that, like I said, from 25 to about 71, and you crush that in, it is like a 35, 36 average window. Average. Just forget the window bit. It's just an average. But that window, I'd say, guys, from you can fuck around for your entire first 25 years of your life. Like I said to you guys before in another video, you're not even alive or awake. People are wiping your own ass for 5 of your first years. You can't drive, you can't fuck, you can't earn money, you can't go out, you can't start a business until you're 16 in the UK, where you're not supposed to. And you've basically got this fuck around until you're 25. But then from 25 to 50, guys, that's where you make it happen. And it doesn't mean that you need to be at your peak at 25. I'm just saying, and I've said this millions of times before, that you should be working hard when you're young so that when your peak comes along, because I think you'll all agree, I'll circle this back around, but I think most of you will agree that most 35, 36-year-old men that you know are not at their peak. They might be at their peak financially, but they look like shit. They're maybe negative. They're not getting the most attractive women. They got the most attractive women when they were 18. That's just them. And they'll tell you, oh, your school years are the best years of your life. You're at your peak at 18. Men who make the best of themselves and the most of themselves, and do you know what? The same is true for women. It's just so many women don't do this. But especially men, is that you're in your peak from, like I said, mid-30s to late 40s. Your true peak, I believe, or 30 to 50, probably your true peak. Yeah, probably 35 to 50. But most men don't work towards that. So they think they're in their peak when they're young. They go out drinking, they eat whatever they want. They focus on spending money rather than saving it, investing it, building for the future, starting a business, finding a career path that they love and just, putting everything into it. And they think, because they think it's good now, they think they're missing out on life. They'll go traveling, etc. I'm making a video on that soon. And they think they're going to miss out on life. But they don't realize that the peak that's coming is so much better than the one that they're in right now.